Hello and welcome to another Spore creation tips and tricks video. In this video series, I will demonstrate and explain various techniques used in creating or answer questions that you may have. Keep in mind these are all of my own opinion and that Spore is diverse enough that you may come up with your own techniques. If you wish to see the rest of the series, check the playlist in the upper right hand corner or at the end of the video. For today's video, I'm going to describe to you guys how to make a mega build. Now, mega building overall is actually a very simple and straightforward process. However, it is one of those things that require a little bit of planning and does require a lot of patience and is quite time consuming. Overall, mega builds do not require any mods whatsoever. It can be done in vanilla. However, you do require the Galactic Adventures DLC because you require the Galactic or the Planet Editor. Using this as your general canvas, it allows you to add so many more parts than you normally can. And the entire trick to mega building is, whereas normally with your creations you make one creation at a time, let's say for example, anything here, any creation here is just one independent creation, a mega build is the overall jigsaw puzzle of multiple fully decked out creatures frozen and melded into one singular model. It's a giant puzzle essentially, and it's a statue that you're creating, and that is in general the mega build. A major example of this is the red dragon. Now, while a lot of the thumbnails are indeed glitched because it is, you know, a heavily modded, very asymmetrical, blah 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 kind of creation, so it's a bit unstable, but anyway. From what you can see in here, you can see multiple different segments for a bit here for the wings, a bit here for like a bit of a mane or shoulders, whatever, underbelly, loads more things, multiple headpieces. That is basically, if you really want to go very detailed into a mega build, that's what it consists of. Just multiple different creations all frozen into one singular thing. Now, for how to actually do the process in the first place. Like I said, you need Galactic Adventures. Just spawn into any planet whatsoever, it does not matter which. And just for your own convenience, let's go ahead and flatten the area as well. That way you can guarantee that every piece is on a stable plane, it's on the same height, length, etc, etc. Now, when it comes to actually importing your creatures into GA, as I'll demonstrate here, if you try to import any creature in, it'll animate, you know, it'll move around, you can't stack them on top of each other, it's obviously not going to work. What you need to do instead is go into gameplay objects, and you want to get any object. I personally just use gates because they're larger and they can be disguised. So, we now have a gate. This weird gate we're going to disguise into just basically any creation. Let's go into the behavior box in the top right there, go into disguised here, and now it allows us to select any creation. But, as you'll notice, you are not able to select a creature, you can only select vehicles and buildings. There's a loophole to this design. So if I go ahead and load in just any creation whatsoever, and load it into the editor, now that I'm in the editor here, what I can do instead is go into the Sporepedia in the bottom left, and as a bit of a unintentional loophole, I can now load in creatures instead. Let's go ahead and find a vanilla creation. If I try to load in, let's say, this creature here, I'm going to edit that in, so now I'm entering the creature editor. Cool, I'm here. I'm going to save it. And thanks to our loophole, I have now disguised the gate as a creature instead of the vehicle. And as you can see here, I now have a static object, a statue if you will, of a creature. Now that is the general principle of how mega building works. You freeze creatures together, and you can stack them, you can do all this kind of stuff, you can make them float, you can rotate them. And when you actually go into the editor itself, into test drive, they all remain there. They're just completely frozen, and thus they are statues. So, now we know the actual core aspect of how to create a mega build, now we want to go over how to, actually do it. There are multiple techniques, and it really does come down to just what people prefer. What I personally like to do is, when I make my own mega builds, is I like to start with a base. That way, using that base, I have all the initial proportions, all the initial poses and postures and, all that kind of stuff, like the head is, the tail, the wings, the legs, etc. Now, for the sake of demonstration, I've gone ahead and activated all of my mods. That way I can show you guys my own modded, or my own mega builds. That way I can get the best possible example. So like I was saying a moment ago, what we need is to get a general base of the creation. And as a demonstration, I'm going to show off the red dragon once again. For the red dragon, let's go ahead and look at the base. Let's load that in, it's now disguised. Wait for it to load because it does take a bit of a while due to it being a modded and therefore larger creation. And this is the overall basics of the mega build creation itself. It has all the information I need. It has the posture, the pose, all the little bits of important information such as where the head is, the way it's orientated and positioned, the size of the wings, the curve of the tail, all that kind of stuff. We have all the basic important things here. Now, let us say that I want to make the wings. The way that I'd make the wings on this kind of creation is, let's say I just want to focus on the membrane. What I do then is take that dragon base there. This is the base model by itself, and as you can see, it is kind of complicated, and for general Spore standards, you know, that as a creation on its own is pretty boring, but it's probably at about complexity's end, so therefore that's about all I can add on to it. Hence, you know, the whole Megabuild procedure. So that's the base. Let's say I want to make the wings themselves. I just want to make the membrane of the wings. What I can do in this scenario is to have as much complexity as I possibly can, to squeeze in every single detail. I can take off everything else. Remove absolutely everything. Remove all the redundant information that I do not need, that's not going to have any bearing whatsoever on the wings. Get rid of all of that. And I really want to just minimize it down to the, you know, the bare possible things that I need. Maybe I'll keep the body in, that way I can have the membrane stretch between the fingertip or the wingtip down to the body. But that's basically about the general, you know, the general base of what I want. Now with this, what I then do is add in a bunch of whatever I want. Whatever pieces I decide is good for the membrane, up until I have a product like this. Now, of course, when I actually made the Megabuild itself in the process, I went ahead and kept a couple of pieces, such as a bit of the tail. I kept as much of the tail required and necessary to have the rest of the membrane attached, but then I got rid of the rest of the tail afterwards. Now, there's two reasons for that. One, like we already discussed, it allows me to add in as much complexity as possible, as things like limbs do indeed contribute to overall complexity, so again, you want to squeeze it as much as you possibly can, but also, the entire point, like another big thing about megabuilding is you're overlapping all these creations. And if you're going to be overlapping an entire body again and again and again, you're going to get clipping. Meshes are going to kind of expose and, you know, flash or just do weird things here and there. You might get like a bit of artifacting. You might just get random colours appearing through. If your Megabuild, say, might have multiple different colours, but you have the entire base body there, you have the head, the legs and tails, everything, even though you're just focusing on the wings. Let's say the wings are blue but the body is red, you're going to have those blue bits appearing through. So if you get rid of all of that, get rid of as much as you possibly can, such as, you know, the base of the tail here, then only this bit of the tail here may appear, you know, a different colour. You won't get the rest of it there, you won't get the arms and legs. It makes sense in practice. But overall, this is the overall end goal. This is the wings I wanted. Let's go ahead and save new. Always save new. You never ever want to overwrite what could potentially be the building block of another piece. And there you have it. So let's say then, we have our body here. I'm going to keep the body there, that way it's a constant reference and I can use it to make sure everything is placed properly together. And I have my wings, so let's go ahead then. Have the wings max size because it's just easy to scale that way. And we're going to try and position these perfectly, as well as we can anyway, along the white template. You may require a little bit of, you know, rotating, a bit of moving around. If you hold shift, it'll move along the X and Y axis, perfectly straight. But if you hold control, you can move it along the Z axis, up and down. So with all that, and of course tab will allow you to rotate in different directions like this. So with all of that in mind, I want to try and get the, I'd say the frame of the wings to match the white frame as well as I can. About that seems about good enough. It's going to clip here and there, hence my entire argument earlier about, you know, you want to reduce as much as you can because you get all this, you know, clipping on the colours and such. But overall, that is the wing sorted. Now what I can do is get rid of the base entirely, and that is pretty much the Megabuild thus far. By keeping in the base the entire time, it allows me to keep on referring back to it, keep on placing things along there in the entire time. It is my general reference point. Let's say I want to now add in the legs or the tail. Let's say I want to have the tail in. If I refer to my red dragon here, let's say, as you can see, they're all named, that way they're all organised. I know what I can go back and edit, or what I can add more on later on, all that kind of stuff, because for what I like to do in my creations, let's say for the tail, I like to have lots of different colours and, you know, have the underbelly plates and then a couple of scales and spikes on the top. Otherwise got a great big variety. And because of that, I need to have it in different creations, that way they're different colours. So here we can see we've got underscales 1, underscales 1 again, so like I said, you always want to save a new just in case. Underscales 2 and underscales 3. I'm actually going to go ahead and get all 3 of those. So we have 1 there. Let's just search under scales of that to make it a lot more convenient. So we've got 1 there, 2 there, and we'll have 3 here. Now again, like I said, the entire way that I've made these is just like with the wings. I stripped off everything of the creation and focused on the one component, in this case the tail. And now we have all 3 parts. Let's go ahead then, just like I did with the wings, we're going to scale it up to maximum size. And we're going to try and position it along the white body. Do try and bear in mind, you know, of course, you want things to clip as little as possible. You may have to shimmy things around just slightly. Maybe, in this case, the chest is going to be slightly forward. That way it hides any of the red markings from the wings. Let's get this tail down here. This is probably, from what I can see, this is the main underbelly segment of the tail. Let's go ahead and once again, a bit of moving around. Let's try and get it flush with the white base there. We have to rotate it ever so slightly counterclockwise, make it a little bit lower. You're not going to be able to get it dead on perfect, but as close to it as you can will be better. In fact, this can happen every now and then, so it's a good thing we're demonstrating this. What can happen is the entire creation may become slightly embedded into the ground. So a simple solution for that is to hold control and move everything up. In this case, I'll move the base body up, that way, you know, again, reference point, make sure that it's nice and flush with the ground, so now I can move everything up along with it, like that. Let's get the chest piece moved up as well, like that, about right, and that tail piece there moved up. Now, what I'm going to do for now, just to show you guys an example, if I get rid of the entire base body there, you can now see that the tail itself isn't actually finished. The scales all end abruptly, and that is simply because of complexity. The obvious workaround for this is to, you know, save the piece, make it into components, load the tail again, and just carry on. Remove all the previous details, and as you can see here, I've now been able to add in a lot more. I simply jigsaw it into place about there, get rid of the base so that we can see properly, and now it just looks like one large consistent piece. And that is basically it. So like I said, it's a very, very time-consuming process and does require a bit of planning. But long enough, after you've finished making every single component, whatever it be for your creation, maybe it can be like a centaur or a human, maybe you want to make like an entire outfit to make all the individual clothing, you can do that as well. And overall, in the end, your final goal will be something like this. So in the end, this here is the complete and final result of the Red Dragon Mega Build. Now, as you can see, it does compose of a lot of different segments. Of course, your Mega Builds do not need to be anywhere this detailed or complex, but it's an idea of the sheer potential that you can get, especially when using mods. Now, when it comes to the whole amount of pages, even in a vanilla Mega Build, you can have up to 6 pages, I believe, with a total of 10 things per page. So in overall, you can have 60 individual components in a vanilla Mega Build. That is 60 individual creatures, all melded together into one singular form. With mods, such as Dark Injections and increased complexity cap, you can then fill out those individual components even further with even more parts in total, and will kind of make things a little bit easier, although much more complex. But as you can see, the overall potential is massive compared to just a regular Spore creature. And as you can see, everything, it really is just its own little individual component. If I take everything apart, there you can see the membrane that we used earlier. Here you can see just scales upon scales upon scales, all wrapped around the wings. I'll go ahead and delete that there. And see that this one here is just purely of whiskers, essentially, just little bits of extra detail. The components don't always have to be massive, you know, they don't have to be fully maxed out, they can just be of one particular little detail. In this case, just quills. It's whatever you want it to be fair, like this is the entire point of a Mega Build, is it's whatever you want. This little bit here, that is just one little, one wingtip, which is completely covered in scales, and just that alone was enough to completely flesh out the complexity meter in Freedom, or with Dark Injections. Earlier I mentioned overlapping details. The tail here is a fantastic example. All the different colours, all the different ideas. This here, as you can see in the underbelly, or the actual skin texture itself, is just orange, whereas the rest of the creation is red. That way it makes the it's a bit laggy. That way it makes the above part here a different colour in total. Move that out of the way. This is just another line of scales. Another line of scales. This is the underbelly, or actually no, this is the side scales here, the tip of the tail. And that here is the actual, there you go, the complete underbelly of the tail. That one there is a bit more of the crotch, essentially. But as you can see, yeah, that is the entire point of a mega build. It takes a very, very long time, takes a bit of planning, but the potential is massive. Now here's an example of a vanilla mega build, and this is a dragon mega build made by Spore. Now as you guys can see, it looks pretty damn awesome, and it only really consists of 5 individual components. And now those components are one for the head, or one for the wings here, the midsection of the body, the arms and legs, the tail, and the head. And that's really is just all it pretty much consists of. And this right here is a prime example. Your mega builds don't need to be giant, big, and flashy. Just having in the individual parts like this just really are good enough, and it makes for a really amazing creation. It's just simple as, in my opinion, vastly superior to a typical vanilla spore creature. You know, it consists of spore creatures, multiple of them smashed together into a bigger, more majestic build. This epic build is made by Loliet Lover 360, and again, it's just a fantastic example of the sheer potential, not just of Mega Build, like I know I keep on saying that, but just of the game itself. Like, this is the kind of stuff that you can do just with a bit of ingenuity and a bit of creativity, and massively abusing the potential mechanics of the game. Galactic Adventures is, you know, even though it's meant for making your own missions and such, it is an amazing canvas for making these incredible builds like this. So guys, I hope that you've all learned something, and I hope that may have inspired you to make your own ones. If any of you do have any mega builds, please do let me know. I love seeing them. I think they're just absolutely incredible, especially the time investment and the sheer, you know, focus on doing it. I think they're amazing. So let me know. And as always guys, thank you very much for watching, and have a wonderful day. I'll see you in the next tips and tricks.